Welcome to episode 4 of Inside the Program podcast. Today's guest is Caleb Kupa. He is the director of basketball operations at Towson University in Baltimore, Maryland. What's going on, Caleb?
What's going on, Coach? How are you?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Definitely glad to have you as a guest, man. Before we get started, can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
And thank you for having me today. Really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my journey through some of the different places that I've been, and then obviously now at Towson. Super excited to be on staff here, and super excited to be working with the coaching staff here. When I first got into coaching, I was a varsity assistant coach and a JV coach at Westchester East High School with their girls program. So that was my very first coaching position. I was there for 1 year. And then the following year, I joined the staff at Westtown, a private boarding school outside of Westchester, Pennsylvania. So I spent 3 years there as an assistant coach. And then actually this past year, I was the associate head coach there. I spent 1 year after my first year at Westtown coaching with East Coast Power on the AAU circuit. And then following that 1 year with East Coast Power, I also coached with Team Final on the EYBL circuit. And I've coached with Team Final for 3 years again before coming to Towson. And then obviously this is my first year at Towson on staff with Coach Scary as his director of men's basketball operations.
That's what's up, man. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Thank you.
Basketball is such an amazing sport. How was you first introduced to this game, and when did it become your love and passion?
So my dad was a really big basketball player. He played basketball at the University of Pittsburgh. So basketball was kind of always entrenched in our family from a really young age. I don't even remember how old I was when I first started playing. But I just remember like early elementary school, we started playing and we played other sports. I played baseball, soccer, as well as basketball. But just as I continued to get older, basketball was just a sport that I found myself loving the most, caring about the most, wanting to get better at. So I want to say, like I said, early elementary, maybe first or second grade is when I kind of realized and told my parents that I wanted to play basketball full time. And that was the only sport that I really cared about and wanted to work at. So
Okay. Yeah, basketball is definitely amazing. It's an amazing sport, man. Can you speak on your time as a player, and at what point during your playing career did you know that you want to get into the coaching profession?
So I was an average basketball player. I probably had the opportunity to play at the Division III level, but I just realized that I wasn't going to pursue the basketball career much further. I had kind of just tapped out in terms of the skill that I had when I finished my high school career. So I stopped playing when I got to college at Westchester, and I spent a year there just working out, playing in the rec with some of the guys on campus, and kind of just felt the itch to want to get back in the game in some way, shape, or form. So my sophomore year is when I first started coaching. I was also a teacher, so I think that coaching and teaching are two really similar career paths, and just wanting to help your students and players become the best individuals that they can be through the classroom and through the game of basketball. So as I was an education major, I was introduced to the position at Westchester East. So I spent, like I said, 1 year there and transitioned over to Westtown. But I don't really think there was ever a point when I knew that I wanted to get into coaching. I just knew that I wanted to be in basketball again with a team around the game. And I didn't really care what that necessarily looked like, just wanted the opportunity to be around the game again.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. How did you actually become a coach on the staff at Westtown, like the boys side?
Right. So it was actually funny. I was at a Sixers game with my younger brother. And at this time, Billy Lang was still an assistant coach on Brett Brown's staff with the Sixers. And his dad, Coach Lang, was my high school coach. So I actually saw Coach Lang at that game and was telling him where I was coaching at, that I wanted to kind of take the coaching profession a little bit more seriously. And it worked out perfectly that Seth Berger, who's the head coach at Westtown currently, had just had an assistant step down to spend some more time with his family. So he was looking for someone to come on staff and join the program. So Coach Lang introduced me to Seth, and I interviewed with him about a month later, and he hired me as his assistant. I guess that was 4 years ago, and then those were four of the absolute best years of my life. I was able to learn so much from Seth and his program, and then obviously we had really talented players. He's coached Mo Bamba, Cam Reddish, Brandon Randolph, Daniel Ochefu. He's coached some of the best players in the country. And then during my time, guys like TJ Berger, Jalen Wardley, who's a point guard at Florida State. Jalen Gaffney's was a former guard at UConn. Derek Lively was the number one player in the country last year. Oh, he's currently at Duke, so I think it was just a really good opportunity to work with some really talented players. And then obviously, a lot of college coaches were coming in to recruit our players, so that was a really good opportunity for me to network and get to know college coaches across the country, which allowed me to be able to connect the dots and then ultimately end up here at Towson. So really great opportunity, and can't thank Seth enough for the opportunity that he gave me to join his staff.
Okay. So during your time at Westtown, on the boys' side and the girls' side, what was the greatest joy and the biggest challenge you faced coaching both the high level guys at Westtown and the first coaching job you had with the girls? Like, if you can compare and contrast looking back, what was the biggest joy and the biggest challenge in both of those situations?
Biggest joy in both situations was just being a part of the program and watching the boys and girls respectively just get better over the course of the season. I think that's the best part, just understanding and really honing in on what guys and girls can improve over the course of the season and helping them accomplish those goals. I coached one girl that went on to play Division III basketball at Immaculata, and one girl that went on to play Division I basketball at NJIT. Just watching those two girls get better over the course of my season and getting to watch them commit to their respective schools was a really good opportunity, really joyous moment to be a part of. And then the same thing at Westtown, just being a part of that program was a little bit different because I was there for much longer as opposed to 1 year at Westchester East and then 4 years at Westtown. I was able to kind of get to know and really grow with our incoming freshman classes when they got to Westtown. I started, and when they graduated, I moved on to this position at Towson. So getting to watch those guys go through the struggles of being a freshman, sophomore, and trying to navigate what that looks like in terms of finding their role, and then ultimately. We actually lost the state championship my first year, those guys' freshman year, and we won the state championship there last year, my last year at Westtown. So being a part of that was a really cool experience. We won two state championships at Westtown. We lost in the state championship 1 year, and then obviously that third year was COVID, so we didn't have a state playoffs. But I think anytime when you can look at a 4 year span and you win two state championships and you lose in one, that's a really successful program. It just goes to the guys and their hard work, their commitment to getting better, to taking care of their bodies, to doing all that they can both on and off the floor was just the best part. I think the biggest thing in terms of a challenge was just getting to know the different players within the program. Obviously, it was two new programs for both at Westchester East and at Westtown. So just spending that time as I first transitioned to both those positions and getting to know the players in each program, getting to know their families, because I think just getting to know the players and who they are as individuals off the court allows you to coach them better on the court.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff there. One of the things that I really admire about the culture at Westtown, because I was watching the previous interview that you did, was the green light for everyone idea. As a coach myself, I think one of the most important things is to give confidence to players. And the green light for everyone concept is a huge confidence giver. So can you just expound and speak on how this idea came to be and just give us some more insight on that green light for everyone thing that you guys did at Westtown?
Right. No, I think I think Seth and Coach Scary, in the short time that I've been around him, is just we're of the understanding as coaches that players aren't shooting to miss. Like no player at any point in a basketball game is shooting to miss on purpose. So I think that if you can instill that confidence in them, and just not, I think the biggest thing that players struggle with nowadays is playing with that quote unquote yellow light. So it's like, do I shoot it? Do I pass it? What do I do? Um, and I think one of the big things that we really tried to focus on was film study. So we would break down film and we might say, well, you shot the shot and it was a great shot, but what else do you see that might be open? Um, at the end of the day, both at Westtown and Towson, obviously we can recruit players. So we're not going to recruit any selfish players. So we're not going to take guys that are going to take bad shots that aren't going to be great teammates. So we know that all of our players aren't being selfish when they're taking shots. They thought that that was a good shot when they shot it, and we'll never question that. But we might also say, hey, you took the shot, but what else is open? Like if you took a pull up three and the guy went under a ball screen, was the roll man open if there was a hard hedge? Different things like that. Just seeing what they saw and what we see so that they can ultimately get better and make better reads is because obviously as the higher levels you go, you have to make quicker and faster reads. in terms of playing the game. So I think that's super important. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's just a confidence thing. We want to have our players understanding and always knowing that we have confidence that they're going to take and make shots that they take in practice, and they're working on the shots that they're taking in games to be their best selves. And I just think that players will ultimately be their best selves when they're playing with confidence and knowing that their coaches have entrusted them to take the shots that they're going to take during the games.
Yeah, man, I love it, love it. I'm a huge practice guy, and for me, practice and the process of preparing for the game is just as fun as competing for a win. I would love to hear how you guys would go at practice at West Town from start to finish. Like, how would a typical practice look at West Town? It's such a high level program where you guys were sending guys to major Division One, NBA guys. Like, what was your practices like?
So it depends on the time of year. So what the guys at West End are doing right now until about Halloween, which I think is something that really stands out about our program, is that from the first day of school until, like I said, that Halloween end of October date is strictly skill development. We're not putting in any offensive concepts. We're not putting any defensive concepts in. We're just taking that time to allow guys to get better at what they need to get better at to play during the year. And I think that's super important because at the end of the day, we're just of the mindset where the better that we have, the better players that we have will always take precedent over the better plays that we might try and implement. So if we have better players, and they're stronger in different areas of player development and skills and different things like that, that they're ultimately going to be their best selves. Um, I think in this profession, a lot of coaches allow their egos to dictate that. And they say like, hey, I know especially so many young coaches, especially with Twitter, see plays and like, oh, this play is going to be great. But it's like, if you don't have the personnel, if you're watching a clip of the Warriors and you don't have a guy that can do what Steph Curry can do, that play could be great on Twitter, but it might not work for your team. So one of the things that we implemented, like I said, was that 2 to 3 month period of strictly skill development. When we did get into the season, obviously that changes a little bit because, like you said, we have to prepare for the teams that we're going to be playing throughout the season. So we'd spend like 15 or 20 minutes with vitamins. So that's when we break our players into 3 or 4 small groups. And again, they're just working on things that they need to improve their individual games. So we'll group 3 or 4 guys that need to work on passing or reading a ball screen or defensive positioning or different things like that. And for that week, we'll have those guys work in a small group for, like I said, 15 or 20 minutes with a coach or two on those individual skills. And then the rest of the practice is broken up. I guess you could say that's 15 or 20%. The other 40% is offense. The other 40% is defense. So we're running through our plays, putting new plays in, practicing against the defense that the upcoming team that we're going to play is going to play. So if a team is going to, like a Syracuse type team, they're going to play a 2-3. We're going to make sure that we're spending time putting in our 2-3 zone offense. And then the same thing for defense. Is a team going to hard hedge the ball screen? Are they going to switch ball screens? Are they going to ice ball screens? Where we're going to practice that with our scout team against that specific type of defense. So like I said, that 40% offense, 40% defense, then 20% kind of warm up drills, everyday drills to kind of get guys ready to go for practice. And then, like I said, those vitamins as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I know coaches are gonna definitely love that insight, and they'll be able to utilize some of the things that you was just speaking on there. You did mention about coaching at Team Final, and Team Final was one of the premier Nike EYBL teams on the circuit. What was your role with that program, and how did that opportunity come about for you?
So yeah, Rob Brown and Aaron Burt, the two directors of Team Final, are two of the absolute best people in the business, and I'm really fortunate that I got to spend 3 years working for both of those guys. At Westtown, we've just had numerous guys that have played for Final. Noah Collier is at William and Mary right now. Cam Reddish played for Team Final. John Bulajak is at Syracuse right now. Went to Westtown. He played for Final. So just got to be around Rob and AB as they would come to practice, come to games to support the guys on our team that played for Final. And I just made them aware that I wanted to coach in college eventually, and that obviously being on the Team Final platform would elevate my chances to do that. So it was a great opportunity again to work with high level players, to be able to network with college coaches, and then I think just most importantly, Team Final has some of the best coaches in the country. Like I was able to learn from James Johns, who's an assistant at Fairfield now. DJ Irving was a coach with us at Final. He's an assistant at the University of Miami right now. Bobby Jordan's an assistant at the University of Albany. So we have a long pipeline of coaches that have coached with Final that have transitioned to the Division One coaching ranks, and I thought that that would offer me an opportunity to do the same, and it has. But it's just the resource, the brotherhood, the friendship, the family atmosphere that we cultivate within the Team Final program is second to none. I know I can go to those guys if I have any questions on anything, for advice, insight, anything that I might need as I transition to this role. I know they'll be able to support me in being my most successful self.
Yeah, man, that's amazing stuff, Caleb. And opportunity is just a blessing. You know what I mean? For you to have those opportunities to be at a high level program like Westtown and to go to the team final organization, man, like whose kudos to you. And I know that that stuff has definitely helped you along your journey and things that you're going to equip yourself with in your toolbox when you become a head coach at a Division One program.
Absolutely.
Speaking on the AAU in high school, from your perspective, what are the biggest differences between coaching like the AAU guys or the AAU team and the high school team? What are the biggest differences?
I think the biggest thing is just the amount of time that you get to spend with them. At Westtown, obviously, it was a boarding school, so I can get in the gym with any of our guys 7 days a week. And then obviously at Final, it's a collection of players from all across the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware. So it just depends on how frequently we can get in the gym. So I think player development in terms of the high school season is super. But yeah, like I was saying, I think it's just the amount of time that you get to spend with them in high school is obviously much more. I think um, in the AAU setting, it was more so worried about our offensive concepts or defensive concepts, and then just like team chemistry because we only get those guys once, maybe twice a week when they're still in their high school careers. They have workouts and practices and different things like that. So it's a little bit more difficult again to get those guys together when the AAU season rolls around. So offensive and defensive concepts take precedence to that kind of skill development that you can more so focus on in the high school aspect. And then I also think it's in the AAU setting, you're trying to showcase your players so that they can show what they can do to college coaches. So I think that in the AAU setting, you want to more so cater your team to what do your players do best. I think that's most important. Wins and losses are great, but at the end of the day, you want your guys to be able to go to college for free. So I think that we want to showcase our players and what they do best to college coaches so they have the opportunity to accept full scholarships to the college that they're most interested into attending. So I think those are probably the two biggest differences in terms of what your team is focusing on and what you're implementing in the different games you're coaching in both AAU and high school.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Before we talk about your new position as a director of basketball operations at Towson University, how has your previous job as an assistant and associate head coach at Westtown prepared you for being the Dobo at Towson?
I think it was great. I think Seth gave me the opportunity to learn and grow and learn from my mistakes. I've obviously being at a high level program that I had no experience at before, there was going to be some growing pains. And one of the biggest things that I think was most important was my first year. Um, I tried to handle all of the quote unquote director of operations roles because I couldn't really help our players basketball. I didn't really know the terminology, the type of level that I was at Westside. I had never really been around before. So, like I said, that first year, I tried to just be the best quote unquote director of basketball operations that I could be. So, whether that was, I always had practice set up before we got started. So, that means the basketballs were always out, the jerseys were always out for the players. When we were on the road, I made sure that we had our jerseys, extra shoes, extra socks, extra warm ups, whatever the case may be. I tried to handle all the logistical pieces of coaching and traveling the best that I could because I wasn't able to really contribute to the basketball X's and O's part of coaching. And obviously that changed as I continued to be around the program and Seth kind of took me under his wing and helped me kind of learn and grow in terms of X's and O's. But like I said, just being able to do all of those director of ops, logistical pieces to coaching my first year has really prepared me. Organization is something that's super important to this position. So being able to have really good organizational skills has really helped me. And then I just think the network, I know that now I have a multitude of coaches and director of operations individuals in my phone. So if I have a question on travel, like, hey, how did you handle the situation when the flight got canceled? And like, what should I do now? I can call 40, 50, 60 director of basketball operations, assistant coaches at the Division One level that can hopefully give me some insight into what they would do or what they have done if they were in that position. So I think the networking piece And then again, that just Seth allowing me to learn through mistakes and being under his wing and having the opportunity to learn and grow under his tutelage was super important, along with that first year and really handling all of the logistical pieces to making sure that Westtown could compete at its highest level.
Okay. Can you talk about your new position as the door boy at Towson University, and like how does it differ from like your previous position as a coach?
Right. So I think the biggest thing is you're not doing as much coaching as I was at Westtown and with Final. It's a support staff role. So we have the head coach and three assistants who are at practice every day and on the court with our guys. So I think the biggest thing is just managing our managers. So making sure that the practice is set up correctly, that we have all the things that we need, whether it be the camera and the film practice for the day. Our managers have towels to wipe up the floor if there's sweat on the floor, different things like that. The clock is set up. So just making sure that all of our managers are in the right position to be successful over the course of practice. And then just managing any, again, logistical things. If we have a recruit coming to campus today, I'll make sure that I'm greeting his parents and that recruit, that student athlete at the door, situating them at practice, making sure I'm getting anything that they need. If any coaches are coming to practice, like yourself did, like you did last week, to kind of just watch, making sure that I'm helping them get to campus in the right positions, making sure they're parking in the right places, helping them, guiding them into the gym, making sure they're situated, different things like that. And then the biggest piece of my job now is probably travel and logistics. So whether it be flights, buses, hotels, food, I'm making sure that all of those things are situated and taken care of before we're getting ready to travel, so that we can again plan accordingly, making sure that we're flying in hours before our practice time that night at whatever university or college we're playing at, making sure that the bus is going to pick us up on time at our different places, just making sure that our logistical piece of travel is taken care of. And then obviously, because of my connections to both Westtown, coaches on the EYBL circuit and team final, I'm able to help in recruiting and kind of having experience seeing, coaching and playing against and with some of the best talent in the country, being able to kind of offer that insight to the coaching staff here. We're really focused on the class of 2024 and recruiting student athletes in that class right now. So getting together a list and starting to put together lists of open gym schedules for different coaches across the Northeast in the country, so that our coaching staff can get out to those events and evaluate those student athletes at those different schools. And then just supporting our coaching staff with whatever they need, whether it be making copies of the practice plan, making copies of uh, flight itineraries, like coaches flying out to Chicago to see one of our committed players in 2023 next week. So I've booked his flight, got his rental car for his time out in Chicago. So just doing whatever I can to best support the coaching staff here.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, Caleb. Before we wrap up, man, last question is, and I got this idea from reading a book called Limitless by Jim Quick. I'm definitely a reader. I feel like readers are leaders, and you grow as much as you read. Like the more you put in, the more you can get out. And so he had
Absolutely.
this concept about being a grow giver, and I feel like as coaches, like you know, what I mean, we can really benefit each other by just giving, and it'll allow us to grow. So, what is like one of your favorite drills that you can kind of just verbally just explain to myself and other coaches that they could probably implement and like becoming better at what they're doing?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a drill. I found that it's kind of related to film. I think one of the biggest ways that players can improve is through watching film. So I think that one of the things that I did at Westtown was I had access to Synergy through a friend that coached at the college level. He actually gave me his Synergy account. And if you're not familiar with Synergy, it's kind of a video platform where you can go back and watch any college game, any NBA game, any WNBA game. I believe there's even grassroots games. So whether you're coaching on the EYBL circuit, the Adidas circuit, the Under Armour circuit, you can go back and watch players in games on those different platforms. So one of the things that I would always do is I take whatever player I was working with at the time. So we can use Derek Lively, who's a freshman at Duke right now. Was the number one player in the country last year. He's a 7'1" big. He's kind of a more modern day big. So I would go on Synergy and I'd find clips of Anthony Davis. I'd find clips of Nikola Jokic. I'd find clips of Joakim Noah. Those are three of the kind of guys that we kind of molded together to put into what Derek's game translates to in the NBA. And I'd find things that they did well and when in ways that Derek could implement those into his game. So obviously, one of the biggest things with Jokic is when they put him at the top of the key, he's a really great passer. So they kind of facilitate offense through him at that top of the key position. So finding assists, throwing backdoor passes, um, DHOs and zoom actions, different things like that, just to kind of open up Derek's mind to what he could be at that level at Duke and when he gets to the NBA next year. And just like I said, I think all players have the dream of getting to the NBA. So instead of finding a college player that they maybe never heard of before, I can try and find an NBA player that they've definitely heard of that they want to model their game after. And I think um, that's one of the ways that I was able to help our guys get better was because again they had somebody that they cared about in the NBA who they wanted to model their game after, and I think that was something that allowed them to be super successful because they were able to see um, what they could do, how they could improve. I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped me as a coach in terms of my teaching career is the different learning styles. How do your players learn best? Is it physical? Do they do best by do they learn best by doing something? Is it visual? Do they learn best by seeing something? Do they learn best by hearing something? An auditory learner. So I think that's something that at Westtown we really took advantage of. We wanted to find out how our players learn best and then coached and taught them to that ability so that they could be the best selves both on and off the court.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, man. That was a huge gem. I feel like everyone can definitely utilize that and implement that in what they're doing to help players become better.
Absolutely.
Um, as we wrap up, man, just how can people kind of like follow you and just find you on social media?
No, absolutely. So my Twitter is Coach Kupa. My email is ckupa at towson.edu. And then my cell phone number is 609-923-2505. It's definitely been a little bit difficult managing both email, Twitter, and my cell phone just in terms of getting back to people because obviously I have many more people than I did before. But one of the things that I've always tried to pride myself on is every Twitter DM. I might not respond to every Twitter DM, but I do look at all of them. I do try and respond to as many as I can in terms of recruiting. There are certain things that I can't really do some things with, but I will try and get back to everyone that reaches out to me, whether it be email, Twitter, and then phone calls and texts. I will say that, and now at this point, phone calls are probably better to get a hold of me, just because I don't always have my phone on me to hear it vibrate. But phone calls, I do always try and call people back as soon as I can. But I'd say those are the three best ways to reach out. And then, like I said, I'm here to be a resource for anyone that wants to reach out. I know how tough it can be to transition from the high school level to the Division I coaching level. It took me 4 years, but I just think it's all about the journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to make sure that you're positioning yourself, you're aligning yourself with the right people, and then at the end of the day, you just got to be a great worker, a hard worker, and just be diligent, and just be willing to put your head down and really grind. Because I think the college coaching profession, college basketball in a whole, is a grind, and you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot to get to this level. But like I said, any way that I can be a resource to anyone that's listening, cell phone, email, Twitter, all three ways to get a hold of me.
Definitely, definitely, man. I definitely appreciate you, man. I'm a fan of what you do. I'm a supporter of what you do. I want to see you win. I definitely know that you're gonna be one of the stars in this profession. You just have the whole aura, the whole everything that it takes. And congratulations on your new position at Towson. And continue to climb the ladder in the ranks and move forward, man. Good luck with everything, Caleb. Appreciate you.
Nah, thanks, Coach. I really appreciate the time today. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the viewers out there. Really appreciate the support.